Today we're going to learn about bar graphs and bar graphs data, but mostly, and line graphs, we're learning about these things in order to put the data and create the bar graph, create the line graph, and use the data to help us answer questions. So the overall goal is to be able to create this bar graph so that I can answer questions about my data. This type of stuff is used in math, but it's also used in science, and you'll notice that when we come to conclusions in science and we do our scientific method, part of it is using the data to answer questions. So it goes with math and science in this case. All right, so I brought in some data. I asked some people what their favorite dinosaur is. So we had the T-Rex, and we had 6 people that loved the T-Rex. The Triceratops, there were 3 people that loved the Triceratops. The Brontosaurus, there were 5 people that loved the Brontosaurus. The Diplodocus, there was only 1 person who loved the Diplodocus. And the Raptor had 10 people who loved that dinosaur. So now let me show you over here just a little bit. And we have my bar graph. I actually have a bar graph and a line graph. So if you can see those, I've got a bar graph and a line graph. Okay? If you notice, right now there is no difference between the bar graph and the line graph. They are the exact same thing. So you'll notice that you start with a bar graph and a line graph looking the same way. Each one needs a title. Each one needs an X and a Y axis, X and a Y. They both start at 0 where the X and the Y meet. And then you label each side. So my x-axis has a label, my y-axis has a label. Okay? Bar graph, line graph. No difference. Okay? When we start to put the information into the bar graph is when we start to see the differences. Okay? In this case, the bar graph, I'm going to look at the title, which was on my data, it was, what was your favorite dinosaur? So my title, I'm going to shorten it a little bit, and I'm going to put favorite dinosaurs. Okay? And the reason that I put that is so I know what this graph is going to tell me. Okay? Once I have my favorite dinosaurs, I look at my data again, and there's 2 things that I find on my data. I find the type of dinosaur, and I find how many people. Well, those are my labels. So the type of dinosaur is going to come down here. I'm going to write type of dino. And then over here, I have the number of people. I'm going to abbreviate it, so I'm going to put the hashtag, which actually stands for number. Number of people. Because that's the number of people I asked. That's what the data is telling me. So now I need to sit here and put all of my dinosaurs down here. I'm going to write them sideways so they fit. So I have T-Rexes first. My next coming from my data is the Triceratops. And I'm going to abbreviate in this case. My Brontosaurus comes after that so that they all fit. My Brontosaurus comes next. Then the Diplodocus. And finally, my Raptor. Once I have this side labeled, then I can determine what my intervals will be going up the top. So my numbers on my graph went from, on my table went from 1 to 10. So my intervals need to be somewhat small. So I'm going to do it just by ones because that's pretty simple. So I just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are my intervals, and they are done by ones. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to use different colors for each one of these. That helps me see them more clear. If they're all the same color, then it's harder for me to see the data. So for T-Rex, if I look at my chart, it says I had 6 people who really like the T-Rex. So I'm going to go right up here until I find the 6. Right there, and then I'm going to go across, and I'm going to bring this part of my bar up, and that is my T-Rex data. I'm going to continue on, and I'm only going to do a couple of these, just for an example, my Triceratops on my table says that 3 people like the Triceratops. So here's the Triceratops. Here's my number 3. So I go up to the number 3, and I go over. And there's my Triceratops data. All right, I'm going to do one more in this case, and that's my Brontosaurus. My Brontosaurus was 5. So here's my 5. I go up to my 5, and I go across like this, and there is my Brontosaurus data. So as you can see, I can quickly look at that graph, and I can figure out which one was like the best. So T-Rex was like the best in this case. The Triceratops was the least. I don't have to look at my table in order for me to determine what's the least, what's the most, what's the difference, and I can compare things. Because remember, a bar graph compares. So this is important. A bar graph compares things. I can compare 2 things on that bar graph. I can compare more than 2 things on that bar graph. That is a bar graph. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the data for my line graph. So let me put my line graph out there just like that. On my line graph, the question that I asked is, what time do you leave for work? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So I want to know throughout the week what time you leave for work. Okay? I have my data here. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is my table. On Monday, it's 6:34, and make sure you put AM. I believe I forgot that earlier, but you want to make sure you put AM. It could be PM. Some people work at night, so make sure you label it as in the morning. Okay, this is what Miss Shattuck does. She gets up on Monday and she gets to work by 6:34. That's not entirely true because they won't let me in the building at that time, but this is an example. On Tuesday, 7:02. On Wednesday, 6:45. This is the same person. This isn't multiple people. I'm not comparing people. I'm comparing one person. On Thursday is 6:53. On Friday is 7:12 in the morning. So let's go back to, and hopefully I'm not making you sick here. Let's go to my line graph. And I'm going to pull you down to my line graph so you can see just a little bit better what we're working with. So here's my line graph. Line graphs compare change over time, okay? They work with change over a period of time, okay? That's what a line graph does. Change over a period of time. Now, we still need a title. We still need a title. So we have, what time do you leave for work during the week, during the work week? So I'm going to put my title, let me put it in a different color. Time I leave for work in a week. Okay, I put all that information up there. It's a little bit longer of a title because it has a little bit more information in it. Now, I still have my X and my Y axis, and I still need my labels. So I have 2 things of data. I have the days of the week, which is one label, and I have the time in the morning, which would be another label. So I'm going to put my days of the week on the bottom on the X axis, days of week. And on the y-axis, I am going to put time. Okay? So what time do I get up? What time do I leave for work in a week? Or what time do I leave for work in a week? Time. So days of the week, we are going to come down here and the same thing. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is considered an interval. So that's the week. If it was months, the interval would be in months. Okay? On this side, the interval, we start at 0 always. But my earliest time was 6:34 in the morning. That's what time I left for work. My latest time was 7:12 in the morning. Okay? So if this is the case, and I'm looking at this for my data, if I go to work at 6:34, I'm actually going to put just before 6:34. So I'm going to put 6:30. 6:30 a.m. Okay? And I can put time and a.m. here. That way I don't have to write a.m. all the way up my intervals. Okay? So 6:30 to 7:12. I'm going to go in intervals of 5. I can count by 5s. It's not a lot of data. It helps me make it a little bit neater. So 6:30, 6:35, 6:40, 6:45, 6:50, 6:55, 7 o'clock, 7:05, 7:10, and I'm going to go a little higher than 7:12 because I have to cover 7:12. So 7:15 would be my top data. Okay? Now I just need to put the points on my graph. So on Monday, 6:34, I'm going to go Monday, and 6:34 is a little bit below 6:35, so Monday at 6:34, I want to put it roughly there. Tuesday is 7:02, so I go to Tuesday, I find 7 and a little higher than 7, and then I'm going to put my dot there. Wednesday is 6:45, so I go to Wednesday, I find 6:45, and I'm going to make them meet right on the 6:45 line. Thursday was 6:53, so I find Thursday a little below 6:55, and I'm going to put Thursday right there. Friday was 7:12, so here's Friday. It's a little above the 7:10, so I'm going to come across to there. And the last thing I need to do is connect it. So we start at 0, and I connect my line plot or my line dots on my line graph. So now it shows me that the latest that I went was 7:12. The earliest I went is 6:34, and then I can find out where in the middle I was. Okay? On average, I can say, looking at these 3 dots, around 6:55 was my average time for leaving for work. So I can use this data to help me answer questions. Again, it looks exactly like the bar graph except for my intervals and this part of it. Okay, so once we put the data on, it changes things. So the last thing that I want you to know is what things you need on your graphs. That's the last part of this. All graphs require a title. So I had a title on both the bar graph and the line graph. All graphs require labels on the X and Y. Labels, X, Y. Okay? All graphs require intervals. Those are the numbers. So you need intervals going both directions. Okay? Intervals on the X and intervals on the Y. Okay? Those are the 3 things that you need in order to create either a bar graph or a line graph. Oh, and don't forget, you do need one more thing. You need a table full of data. Table of data. Because you can't create a bar graph without the table. So make sure when you're making your bar graphs today, you have all of this information on your bar graphs. Okay, and if you have any questions, just give me a call.